The Great Reset is crumbling. Their agenda to control our lives and to bring in CBDCs and create a techno-feudal state is failing. There was something that's happened in the last few weeks or so, which is phenomenal, a watershed moment in the fight for freedom. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
The world has failed, I tell you. The world has failed yet again.
Hi everybody, I am joined by Jana Lunden. Jana is one of the campaigning women in Ireland, campaigning against the erasure of women. Apparently, it's not a good thing to not have any women in a country whatsoever. We're going to be finding out more about what I mean by that. Now, before I introduce her, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, join my official Telegram announcements channel. And if you're watching this on YouTube, well, you may not get to see the whole thing because YouTube's a little bit censorious and doesn't want us talking about certain subjects. So you'll find the whole thing on bit.ly/CryptoRichOdyssey, bit.ly/CryptoRich3Speak, and bit.ly/CryptoRichRumble. Jana, thank you so much for making yourself available. I just got to say, it has been too long since you were last on, okay?
Yeah, we'll have to set a reoccurring date. Time does fly. The weeks turn to months when you're busy kind of trying to make the world better. And
Yes.
we'll definitely have to set a reoccurring date.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now, something happened. There was a referendum in Ireland. We're recording this on the 13th, and the referendum was it the 11th or the 10th?
It was on International Women's Day, which I
Last
believe
Friday.
is Friday. It's last
Friday,
Friday,
yeah.
International Women's Day, and the Friday before Mothering Sunday on Mother's Day. So there was a big referendum here, and it was a lot of intensity building, a lot of countrywide polls. At one point, it looked like it was sort of going to be like 50-50, and we were all on edge with where it was going to turn out. But it was a landslide. It was a lot of people in Ireland who maybe didn't dare to speak up before about things that weren't right, silently protested at the ballot against so many things that are wrong. I think from talking to people on the street, even people who didn't know the details of the referendum, which anyone who knew the details should have voted no. I mean, erasing woman, erasing mother, erasing the word home, putting in durable relationships, which they can't even define. Even if someone didn't know the details, they said, we're just voting no, because all of the government and their agents, their NGOs are pushing it. We're just going to vote no because we oppose so much the Irish government is pushing.
Right. Now, just say, what were the details of the referendum so people...
Yeah, so there were a few. We made about 100,000 of these leaflets, so I can quote some of the changes here. The article, for example, there was one, they wanted to delete Article 41.2.1 and Article 41.2.2. So delete those two articles, and I'll give you a little history on where the articles came from in a moment. But Article 41.2.1 states that, in particular, the state recognizes that by her life within the home, woman gives to the state a support which without which the common good cannot be achieved. That's a tongue twister. And then Article 41.2.2 states that the state shall therefore endeavor to ensure that mothers shall not be obliged by economic necessity to engage in labor to the neglect of their duties at home. So the government, the media, the NGOs, every single party, even the so-called opposition parties, only one kind of party in the mainstream, which is not really a mainstream party, but Aontú was pushing against this. But all the big parties, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, People Before Profit, Social Democrats, all of them were pushing a yes. If you walked around Dublin city, many cities in Ireland, but I would happen to be in Dublin, every street lamp, every corner had a ginormous yes poster, even with pictures of mums holding babies to say, vote yes for the family. But they want to delete, in those articles that I read, they want to delete the word woman, mother, and home. And they wanted to replace it with Article 42B, which is really just word soup. Or Article 42B doesn't provide the state with any positive obligation to support carers, mothers, or families at all. So the question is, why would they want to erase the mother, the woman, and the home? And it just made no sense at all. They wanted to do this. So
because in order to boost productivity and so that women have the right to go out to work and earn a good living and make money that way and climb the corporate ladder, of course, that's why.
Yeah, and they want to. The other thing I put out in a press release, which no media actually published, no surprise there. But Eamon de Valera actually was inspired by a US feminist called Ivy Pinchbeck, and to insert Clause 41.2 into the Irish Constitution, because Ivy Pinchbeck had talked about how women were often forced out of economic necessity to go work in factories for pittance while leaving their young children alone at home. And so Eamon de Valera was the one that put this in here to protect mothers, so they would not be forced to work and leave their young kids at home alone, et cetera, and they'd have those protections. But the government and the media and NGOs were twisting it, running campaigns saying, the old constitution, the one we have now, is misogynist, it's outdated, it's sexist. Women should not be strapped to the kitchen sink. Women should be allowed to work. And I'm thinking, I've been in Ireland 21 years. What brought me to this country is working as a senior manager in a multinational. And women have always been allowed to work. We had 2 women presidents, Mary McAleese and Mary Robinson. Oddly enough, they were going out. Mary McAleese was campaigning for a yes vote. Women should be allowed opportunities, allowed to work. Did they forget that they were women presidents and nobody held them back? So the propaganda that was going around, making people feel that the Constitution was holding women back, forcing us to stay at home, it was sexist, was completely false and misinformation. Now, one of the biggest spreaders of misinformation was the National Women's Council of Ireland, which get over 1 million euros a year in public funding. They were, as the organization, the publicly funded Women's Council in Ireland, they were pushing to erase women and erase mother from the Constitution. Not to mention, they have a man identifying as a woman on their executive board. And if you look at the NWCI website, they define a woman as anyone who identifies as a woman. Now,
So if my pillow said I'm a woman, that would be
Yeah. So the Women's Council in Ireland, meant to represent women and girls in this country with our public funds, 1 million euros, and 60% of those funds are allocated by Minister for Children, Roderick O'Gorman. And if you've seen the news here, I'm surprised he's still in his job and not being investigated at this point. He is allocating funds to the NWCI, the Women's Council, to push this agenda to break down the family, erase women, erase mothers. And everyone was asking, why is the word home being erased? About 2 years ago, there was a town hall I did in my village, and there was a housing referendum. At that time, I believe it was the 39th Amendment, before this 39th Amendment came out there last week. And the housing referendum said something along the lines of, your private property may be delimited for the common good. So, for example, you have a 4-bed house and only 2 beds are being used. That house, per the recommended amendment, your house could be delimited for the common good. So the right to private property, they're already talking about reducing or taking away. So erasing the word home from our Constitution, was that to pave the way for the housing referendum so we lose our rights to private property? That we just don't know is the honest answer, but there's definitely suspicions about that.
right. Okay. Now, why did they want? In all seriousness, why did they want? What was the real agenda, do you think, about wanting to erase women and marriage and family in the home?
Yeah, it's really to break down the traditional family. They are trying to, it was announced last week, they're trying to pass euthanasia through, get lots of, even surrogacy has come out. So 2 men should just be able to rent a woman's womb and get a baby. They're entitled to that. So it's really about fracturing society. If you remove woman and mother, which is, we're 52% of the population, we're not a minority. Removing woman and mother removes such an important part of the family unit. We have been 80 to 90% of people who are carers to their children are mothers. Now, not to disrespect or say that fathers can't or shouldn't or aren't carers to their children. But generally, a mother is the one, if there's a stay-at-home parent or someone is a carer, it's usually the mother, particularly in the early days when the child is breastfeeding. Only a mother can do that, despite the media saying that it's chest feeding. And you probably saw the news in the NHS that came out that said the genetically modified milk coming out of a trans person is as nutritious as a mother's milk. No, I don't think hormone produced genetically modified milk would ever replace a mother's milk.
No, they tried
So
that before with
this is the
formula.
world we're in.
Yeah, they tried that with formula, and they're doing that with poor vegans drinking oat milk and soy milk, and oh no, 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 no.
So it's a crazy world. And then the other thing that we made sure we got out in our leaflet is that by adding in durable relationship, which the government this legislation was guillotined. It didn't go through any legislative scrutiny. It was rushed through so they could get it out on for the vote on International Women's Day. But the government could not define durable relationship. In fact, they said that they would leave it for the courts to decide in the future. So we won't talk about what it means. We don't really know, but we'll leave it to the courts in the future. So durable relationship was added. That was the proposal to the family amendment. And it was going to add the state recognizes the family. And then they were going to add whether founded on marriage or on other durable relationships. That piece was going to be added in, but they can't even define durable relationships. One of the senior person on the Electoral Commission, I think it was a senior justice who used to be in the legal field or something, had said that a durable relationship could be sending someone a Christmas card. So if I send you a Christmas card, that could be durable relationship, or an invite to a wedding. So one of the senators in Ireland led a campaign against this referendum and put together a group called Lawyers for No, and a whole group of lawyers met. Senator Michael McDowell did a great job campaigning for this, and they couldn't define durable relationship, and they said it would heavily impact. It could be taxation, inheritance, wills. I mean, what if a farmer has a couple hundred acres and a farm and a wife and kids, and then whether his wife passes or whether he's maybe having a mistress down the road, if he passes away, who has rights to the property? He's in a durable relationship with the one down the road, but he has children.
I'm his friend. We're just friends. We're drinking partners.
His friend.
That's a durable
Correct.
relationship. I should be entitled to his property.
Exactly. So it was such a rush thing. Erasing woman, mother, and home, that was a no-brainer. Why would you ever approve that? Adding durable relationship, they couldn't define. That made no sense at all. And then the other thing, the Lawyers for Justice Ireland, that my Natural Women's Council worked closely with, added here that the inclusion of durable relationships would also lead to an increase of immigrants into Ireland under the family reunification visa scheme. So currently, if someone comes into Ireland under this refugee status or international protection, they can bring over their spouse and their children. But if we add durable relationship, it opens it wide up. So some countries, for example, it's okay to have 5 or 6 wives, and they might have 70 kids. Bring them all into Ireland because it's now durable relationships.
Cousin.
Correct, exactly. And in Germany, Germany issued 121,000 family reunification visas after they extended the qualification. So we could be sure that if durable relationships was added, it would open the door even more wide open to these open borders. And Ireland is at tipping point. If you get over to Dublin and you walk the streets, there are camps of tents set up. Someone coming for refugee status, but we don't have any room. Here's your tent. Go sleep on the street. That is a lose-lose situation for everybody involved.
Oh my God, that's appalling. Because then what you have is you have more crime, you have more friction between people. It's no way to take care of incomers, right? I mean, don't put them up in hotels either. You got to take care of people. I mean, I think I said this to you before and I said it certainly in other videos or whatever, right? Open borders don't serve anybody. They didn't serve India. They didn't serve the Americas because people just rushed in, had no way. And then Ireland is this homogenous, beautiful country. And then all of a sudden, I mean, it's not like you went around like the British conquering other people and destroying them, and you got destroyed and conquered yourselves by the British, right?
Yes, yes.
It's destroying the fabric of society, rupturing tradition and faith and family, and all part of the WEF agenda.
That's correct. Yes. And every town and village now, what's happening is there's a town just up the road, about 20 minutes up the road from me in Drogheda. And it was announced that the hotel, the only hotel with a big function room for the town to use, and it's in a prime tourism area because it's near, Newgrange, and they've really done a great job trying to build Drogheda up in County Louth for tourism. The only hotel in town that it was announced is going to close, and they're going to have 500 international protection migrants come into the hotel. The county councillors in Drogheda came out and spoke and said they weren't consulted at all. The people of Drogheda weren't consulted at all. It was coming from Roderick O'Gorman's Department of Integration. And Roderick O'Gorman was also, he sent out tweets in 8 different languages to promote people coming in 8 different languages, promoting people to come in here. Ireland has the best benefits, free house. Well, they come over and they get a tent and sleep on the street, or they get put up in a hotel, a very, crammed quarter hotel. So it's a lose situation for Ireland. It's a lose situation for people coming in. I am not anti-immigrant because I am an immigrant, but I believe in a controlled immigration policy that works for people coming in and the country they come into.
Yes, and I'm an immigrant too, right? But we came, there was work available. The work we were needed for labor, right? And we were allowed to stay. And it is, okay, we can come in, and we were vetted. These people aren't being vetted. There's no facilities for them. Irish people aren't being taken care of by their government. In fact, I think the Irish government and the Irish parties are pretty much the same as the ones in England and Scotland and Wales. They're not taking care of their people.
No. And, the vetting, you mentioned the vetting process. I was also vetted coming over, all my paperwork, fingerprints, stacks of proving who I was and what my past was. And the people coming over now are getting on the planes, and this has been public information, research has been done. If you look up Gript Media, a very high percentage of people coming over got onto the plane with a passport because they were told you can't obviously travel without one. So they're getting on the plane with their papers, but they're getting off the plane with no papers. So they can get off, say, I'm so-and-so, they get their card, they go through the process, they can end up getting an Irish passport, and they come off with no papers. We don't even know what their name is. We don't know what country they came from, and we don't know their criminal past. And they've been recruited by our Minister for Children in 8 different languages to come to Ireland. And the people, 75% of Irish people said they were very, very unhappy about the mass open borders here. It's not safe for women and children on the street. We've seen videos going around, real footage of what's happening, and it's terrifying. I would not let my daughter, when she's 12 or 13, go down walking the streets anymore if I'm still in this country. Not at all.
Absolutely horrific. And then, of course, you get accused, or people who object get accused of being white supremacists, racists, all that nonsense, when actually all you want to do is take care of your own and take care of the arrivals, because, hold on, these aren't genuine refugees, because I think a lot of them in the island are coming from Georgia in Central Asia.
Correct. Yeah.
Georgia's not experiencing a famine or war.
No. There's a village down the road about 10 minutes from me, and they got a pub converted into a migrant center. I think it's going to fit 30 people. And the first 2 people to arrive, being told, of course, they were told it's Ukrainian women and children. The first 2 people to come were a couple from Mauritius, a place that you and I would go on a sun holiday. So what could be happening, this is just speculation at this point, but what could be happening is, if they're not from a country that's they're not fleeing any persecution, they're not coming for protection or refugee status, if they were to apply for a work permit in Ireland, it would cost them a lot of money and it would take time. Are they circumventing the work permit process, coming in the back door under the international protection scheme, given a house, and then they become it's cheap labor for Ireland, because these people will work for wages probably below what a person in Ireland may?
Yeah, well, that's it. Serves the interest of big business. It doesn't serve the interest of local people, because their wages get depressed because there's more competition for work, which is why people on the left in Britain, like Galloway and Tony Benn, when he was alive, were opposed to open borders. As well as destroying tradition and culture and faith and family, it destroys the labor force, completely emasculates them. And as for coming over from Mauritius, are they insane? I've been to Mauritius. You should go to Mauritius. It's beautiful.
I'd love to. I'll try. I'll do a house walk with them.
And they have mangoes. The island just has heat and rain. And
That's right. I'll do a house swap. I'll go over to Mauritius and live in their house. We do a little house swap. It's not a dangerous place, is it? Neither is Georgia, nice little country. So, this is all happening in this beautiful country. And, I think a lot of people were scared to speak up because they were labeled. They were labeled by people as, oh, you're a bigot, you're transphobic, you're far right, you're this, you're that. But the referendum last week clearly showed that people are not afraid to say no. They're not afraid of these nonsensical labels trying to silence them. They're comfortable speaking up because they're just asking questions that any person with common sense should be allowed to ask. But Helen McEntee's trying to push through the anti-free speech bill. She tried to get it through for Christmas, but now she's saying it might be Easter. So if you do try to speak up or organize an assembly...
We'll come to that in a second, right? So
yeah.
I think it was 70% voted no. Majority, right? So obviously 70% of Ireland are racist, white supremacists.
75%. Yeah, you're right.
That's right.
I have the stats here. I have the figures here of the how it worked out. So on the 40th Amendment, the Kerr Amendment, it was 73.93%, and on the 39th Amendment, the Family one, it was 67.69. So nearly a blended average of 70%. So 7 out of 10 people in Ireland are hateful, racist, bigots. So join the club. Join the club.
And you voted no, right?
Well, I campaigned heavily for weeks and weeks. I got 100,000 leaflets out, did loads of live events, registered to vote. I had my little email saying I'm all ready to go. I get to the voting ballot and they said, we don't have you listed. And I said, no, I even drove to verify it. I had a little L next to my name on their card, which means I, as an American, can only vote in the local, which is fine. When I get my Irish passport, they can be sure I'll be voting in in all of them. But I might have not got my one vote in, but I got hundreds of thousands of leaflets and conversations to influence other voters. So that was what was wonderful.
Right. Okay. Now, the anti-free speech bill, right? Well, you and I know that free speech is really bad, because then it allows dangerous, subversive ideas to spread. You have an informed populace, and then people don't know what's good for them. Isn't free speech protected in the Irish Constitution?
The right to speak free. I'm not sure what article. I'm sure there is protection on it. I don't know how they're finagling that they want to put in this legislation. They're doing it under what's called hate speech. So they're calling it the hate speech bill to stop hate speech. However, they can't even, again, the same way they can't define woman, the same way they can't define durable relationship, they haven't been able to define what hate means. It's probably hurting someone's feelings. But under hate are some protected qualities, and you can be sure you know which protected qualities are under there. And they're gaslighting the Irish public to make the wonderful Irish people feel like they're a hateful group. Helen McEntee coming out, Ireland people full of hate, racist. Irish people are not full of hate. I've lived here 21 years, and they are some of the most kind, welcoming, friendly people. But they're being gaslit by the government, like you would gaslight someone in an abusive relationship, to make them think they're hateful. But they are not a hateful people in any way.
Not at all.
They're wonderful. So
I just got to say, I've been to Ireland many, many times, and I grew up in a part of London where there's a very large, actually not far from Kilburn. I don't know if you know Kilburn, right? Very large Irish community here. And so I remember I went to see the Pogues many, many years ago. Me and an African Caribbean friend, we were the only people of color in this Pogues concert, right? They're just beautiful, wonderful, friendly people. Not like they don't have the culture or the strand of superiority that comes through imperial conquest that you'll find, I think, within the British aristocracy.
Yes, yeah, that is true. Ireland, of course, we have the post. There's still some of that post Cromwell sort of oppression in some areas where people maybe are afraid to speak up and rise up, and that's still that deep oppression from what happened over those 800 years. But Ireland definitely, are not a group of people who would be hateful towards anyone. I mean, Irish people are known all around the world. St. Patrick's Day is a holiday celebrated more than any other holiday worldwide. Where I'm from in America, people dye the rivers green and go out and have their Irish dinner and their beer. And the Irish Americans are some of the most patriotic to Ireland people I've ever met. So if Irish people were so hateful, do you really think everyone in the world would love the Irish?
Irish people are loved. I go to Pakistan or, where I've been to parts of Africa, Irish people are loved. The English and the French are reviled It's
Yeah,
what they did.
the English aren't loved as much as the Irish. I can surely say that. And I worked in
Absolutely.
England as well. I used to travel to England to work, and I worked between England and Ireland for quite some time. And I found the Irish people, sorry to my English friends, the Irish people were much more open and warm to people from everywhere. And Ireland is the land of 100,000 welcomes, and right now we're seeing too many welcomes
Yes.
and the country being destroyed. But you know, so the hate speech bill, they can't define hate, and it was even someone scrutinized it and said it could even be possessing a meme on your phone. So if you have a meme on your phone, and that meme is offensive to someone, the Garda could come to your house. The Garda could come to your house and say, we have been told or have a feeling you have something hateful in your possession. We want your devices and the password to your devices. Give me the password to your phone, your iPads, your laptops, and they want the password. They can search everything, and it could be a crime if you had something on your device that they thought was hateful that wasn't even an action. So that's thought crime. So what they want people to do is self-censor. They're not going to have prisons in this country big enough to stop people who speak up or stop people who, send things through on their phone. The intention is to get people to self-censor. You're at a dinner party and they don't want people to dare to speak up about something that's the truth or something about how they feel. They want people to self-censor. And that I think is the purpose of it.
Yes, because the problem with the referendum is, despite the mainstream media pushing it, despite all the parties pushing it, people still voted no because they were talking to each other. People need
Yes.
to stop talking to each other, should put their masks back on, socially distance, right? Which also
Yeah.
served that purpose of separating people, as this will in terms of self-censoring. But it hasn't the mood shifted among the people that, yes, we're winning,
Mhm.
but also amongst the government, like, oh, we need to be careful here because you've got European elections coming up.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. The mood has definitely shifted with the people. There's people walking around and they have this look of a bit of relief that, wow, nearly 75% of the country have the same views as I do. People look around and they think something doesn't seem right in this country, whether it's the open borders, the hate speech law, the WHO treaty, the sexualization of children, erasing woman, erasing mother, the list goes on. Everybody knew something wasn't right, but they just didn't dare to speak up about it. And probably the COVID era, those couple years of keeping people masked up, locked up, don't talk to people, keep your 2 or 3 meter, whatever the distance was, that got people in that mindset of don't talk to people. They lived in that fear. And I don't know if a lot of people have gotten out of that fear, but I think the tide has turned after that vote because people saw this as a real kick in the teeth to the government and a chance to say absolutely not and say no to many more things. So it's a good springboard to start saying no to a lot more that the government are failing the people on.
Right. And what about the government? How have they responded to the loss? And are they backing off, or are they driving further?
Yeah, some are doubling down. And others are sort of probably either out of desperation or realizing they can't live the lie anymore. They've come out and said, they do need to listen to the people more, and maybe no is the best thing. But there's also a group of politicians that are saying, oh, the people voted no because sure, they just didn't understand. They weren't clever enough to know what they were voting for. The language may have confused the poor Irish people. So again, the gaslighting of the Irish people weren't clever enough to know what they voted for. The language was confusing. It's like, no. People knew what they were voting for. They absolutely knew. So just take it that it was a no. So there's a bit of a mix there, but I feel that the ones now who didn't speak up about these issues, who didn't campaign for the no, the ones coming up now, it's like you're a day late on that. You're only coming up because you're scared that there's elections coming and you want to get a few votes, and you know that 75% of the public wanted a no. So don't come out now and say no when you were pushing for a yes for a couple of months. That's laughable.
Yeah. And the thing that you said about that the Irish people are too dumb, that is such an elitist argument. It's what the elites
It
always
is.
do when the vote goes against them. Like for Brexit, it was only thick people, thick racists that voted for Brexit versus people like myself. I may be thick, but I'm not a racist, right?
Yeah.
Not thick, but just white, working class, stupid people who didn't know anything. That's why they voted Brexit. So it's the same nonsense argument here
Mm-hmm.
that the elites say you're
Yeah.
too dumb. Which is why they want to get rid of democracy. If you want to get rid of democracy.
And the WHO treaty they want to ratify in May is another very dangerous thing that's coming up. We did a big event in Dublin on the 6th of February. There was an event at the Dáil where we had Christine Anderson flew over, Andrew Bridgen, Dr. Tess Laurie, Dr. Kat Lindley, attorney at law, Philip Kruse, and we had some local Irish doctors as well on the panel. And they went into the Dáil to present to every TD, minister and senator got an invite to this event to present clearly on why we should not consent to the WHO treaty. Now, out of over 250 government officials that were invited, I think 2 showed up. After that meeting in the Dáil, there was a gathering at the hotel across the road for the public to come in, and the public were able to hear the same panel that presented in the Dáil talk about the WHO treaty, why we must reject the treaty, as well as the international health regulations. Mainstream media didn't touch it. They didn't cover it at all. But on social media, we were able to get out and say, look, Christine Anderson's here from Brussels and Inder Bridgen's here, and the expert doctors and lawyers from around the world are here to say why Ireland should not consent. So it was a really special day. We got the filming done, and we're going to be releasing some footage now that the referendum is over, releasing footage from that event. But, people think about the World Health Organization and they think that it is all about health, and they think it was, part of the United Nations. What they don't know is that there's really been a soft coup between the WHO has sort of handed over the reins of power to the likes of the World Economic Forum, and the United Nations is not the United Nations that we knew, 20, 30 years ago. This is all a corporate drive driven by the WEF, which is 1,000 of the world's top countries. And in the WHO treaty...
Top leaders.
What's that?
1,000 of the world's top leaders, you mean?
Yeah, the top companies, 1,000 of the world's biggest companies. So you're talking your big pharma, big tech, big finance, all of these big companies are in the WEF, and it's a criminal outfit. And the WHO treaty will affect every aspect of life on Earth, not just health. So health freedom, it's going to affect that. It's also in there is agriculture and farming. So we've already seen in Ireland, for example, that the government, due to the Green Party trying to protect, the environment, want to cull 200,000 cattle because obviously cows are bad for the earth. They want people going vegan or eating, bug protein. That was put out by Shaggis, which is Ireland's agricultural consultancy. Chagas, it's a big government funded, but they're kind of agricultural sort of consultancy sort of group. And they put out a tweet a while ago about bug protein. So they're supposed to represent Irish farmers who have cows and, chickens and lamb, but they're putting out about bug protein. So it's just gone absolutely bonkers. So the WHO treaty, again, affects life, every aspect of it, our health. We think COVID was bad with those lockdowns and the masks and the vax passes and the medical apartheid system they put in. That would look like a walk in the park if the countries hand over their sovereignty to the likes of the WHO, which is Director Tedros. You can do your own research on Tedros, but it would be a really bad thing. And they're planning to ratify it in May without any referendum, without any voice from the people, just simply signing it over to the WHO. So that also would mean no accountability. So, for example, the COVID was shambolic. I mean, absolute shambles what happened here in COVID, not to mention the businesses closing down, tourism industry dying, children's mental health, schools closing, and you name it. But right now in Ireland, we have, since the rollout of the COVID injections, we have 18% excess deaths. And Leo Varadkar came out and said a few months ago, there were no excess deaths during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, when we all locked down and didn't talk to people, well, I didn't, but there were no excess deaths, right? So those freezers parked outside hospitals that we saw filled with bodies and hazmat suits in China, people dropping dead on the street, there were no excess deaths during the pandemic here in Ireland. However, since the injections rolled out from the restinpeace.ie data that Patrick Walsh on his Substack produces and has done a fantastic job. He's an accountant. I met him. He has done a Trojan work on producing the excess death data since the injection, 18%. But the government does not want to know about it. And when they do a COVID inquiry, the government here has made it clear they want to do a no blame COVID inquiry. No accountability, no blame. We forced injections, people have died, no blame. That's what they've announced in the public. So all these people who have lost relatives, I've had 2 family deaths, around the time of the shots, one from a heart attack and one from a stroke. And I have family members who are sick with many different illnesses, all since the jab. They are laughing in the face of the people who have lost loved ones, and the government is laughing in the face of all the vaccine injured, not addressing the 18% excess deaths. It's a crime.
I don't know what to say. It's horrific. And in the
It's
UK,
horrific.
they're masking the figures.
They're masking the figures. So if you look at like the referendum, everybody's still on a bit of a high from it. I was on a big high on Saturday, when the results came out, but then I had this big kind of awakening that there's bigger fish to fry now. Let's celebrate. Let's have a toast. Great. But the next day, we now have the WHO treaty. We have the reckless open borders. We have the hate speech bill. And of course, the sexualization and indoctrination of children through the school system. And I've seen some recent material on that. We will be doing a campaign. We're working on it. I have another meeting tomorrow night with the core working group on how we can best package this up to take it into the government, take it into the schools, and get it out to parents. There's so much information. It's mind-blowing. We have teachers who have provided us with this. We have people working in the Irish National Teachers Organization who have shown material to us. We have people in our groups who are in the system and have shown this information and said, this is horrific. This is state-sponsored child abuse. And we're going to work on a campaign for that. So I'll do another podcast once I can share that shocking material with you.
Fabulous. I'd love that. And I'd recorded a short video with a councillor from the Heritage Party in England, which is a party that's pro-freedom. Like you and I would agree with. The leader, David Curtin, I met him a few times on anti-lockdown, pro-freedom demos and stuff. And what I said to him, and consider this in this short video, is that the way governments are pushing the trans agenda on children is the way I have, as a social worker, on occasion dealt with parents carrying out abuse by Munchausen syndrome by proxy, fabricating an induced illness. They're saying to the child, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You need medical intervention to correct it. And there's nothing wrong with it.
And did you see on a different note that the NHS has announced that they will not be allowing puberty blockers to be prescribed to children? That came out in the news, I believe, yesterday in England, which is great news. And we certainly hope Ireland follows suit, because we saw what happened with the Tavistock. It had to close down their gender clinic because of, pretty much malpractice. And there were, I think last year, even after it closed, there were like several, I can't remember the number, I tweeted it yesterday, but lots of Irish children still on the wait list for Tavistock. And even when they announced their closure, children were being sent over for gender affirming care. And they're doing everything they can possibly to get the drugs and surgeries for children to fracture society. I mean, I don't know, if I think about what this country, Ireland, England, really the whole West, the US, Canada, if you fast forward in 10 years' time and you look at all these young children that took their puberty blockers, the cross-sex hormones, young girls had their healthy breasts removed, in 10 years' time, it's going to be the worst child abuse case this world has ever seen. And what will those parents feel like when they look at themselves in the mirror and their little girl, who maybe is 20 at the time, is going to be saying, "Mommy, why did you do that to me?" How is that parent going to live with themselves after harming their child in the name of kindness, diversity, and inclusion? It's just, it's insane. It's child abuse. And I can't believe it's going to happen, or it is happening already with the gender ideology in school, but it's going to get a heck of a lot worse. But how any sane, responsible parent would think that's okay. I met 6 people who had transitioned at a young age, and now they're in their 20s and they're trying to transition back. You don't go back after you remove parts and take those drugs. I mean, there is no going back. So you're stuck with, I feel like my birth sex, but I've done everything to try to change it. So I'm a girl now and I have no breasts and I have a beard and a deep voice. I want to go back. Well, there is no going back.
Messed up. High rates of suicide, high rate, and it's a recipe for cancer.
That was announced today that it came out in I think the Telegraph. I tweeted it. I can't remember. I don't have the paper with me here, but it came out that there was a link to the hormones and puberty blockers. It was linked to cancer. So not only did these parents give the kids the drugs, chop off their parts, but now the children have cancer. Well done, Transhausen mommy.
Yeah, and I worked that out because apart from my gametes, every single cell in my body is XY. every single cell in your body, including your gametes, is XX.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So every single cell in my body is expressing XY,
Mm-hmm.
my gametes.
Mm-hmm.
Then so all the hormones that arise are consistent with that.
Yeah.
Then I take in some exogenous estrogen or whatever. That's going to create turmoil. There's not a medical explanation, but that's going to create turmoil inside.
Yeah.
There's going to
It
be
surely would.
chemical
It surely
conflict
would.
going against nature. And that will
Yeah,
mess.
and I wonder how many of those mummies who think it's okay to bring their little girl in to get the surgery and the puberty blockers and the testosterone, would that mother actually remove her own breast and take testosterone just to stand in solidarity with their little girl? So if they're doing it to their little girl, would they actually do it to themselves? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really shocking. It's really, really. And if you look at my Natural Women's Council YouTube channel, I did a podcast last week with a retired engineer who is an amazing researcher. And he's been researching for the last several years where this is all coming from. And he's read dozens of books, watched loads of documentaries, videos, articles, and done so much research. So he packaged up his years of research into a 90-minute podcast about where it's really coming from, the queer theory, from the Marxism, and how it's gotten down into schools. And that was only part one. It was 90 minutes, and I was shocked. I'm pretty awake to things, and I thought I knew a lot about what was happening. But that video, it's gotten a couple thousand views, and a lot of teachers have watched it, and the comments are really inspiring to see comments that, we are going to show this to our school principal. We're going to share it with all of the parents to know that. See, a lot of people think that this diversity, equity, and inclusion and kindness and, being empathetic and kind and all of this is a grassroots movement from people who are bullied, they're a minority, and it's coming from the bottom up. They have no idea that this is coming from the top down on a global scale, and it's been decades in the making. No idea.
No idea.
So,
same with the climate change agenda, by the way. And the clue for me, because I've been involved in grassroots movements, you are a grassroots movement. Jana, I hope you don't mind me saying that, calling you a grassroots movement, right? With your natural women's council, right?
Yeah.
Out to empower people. One is the authentic grassroots movements don't have access to mainstream media. Authentic grassroots movements don't have corporate sponsorship. Authentic grassroots movements don't have government support. And then the other thing is that authentic grassroots movements, their spokespeople go and do interviews anywhere and everywhere. I've reached out to Extinction Rebellion. I've reached out to Just Stop Oil. I've reached out to Christians for Climate Change. I thought they'd talk to me, the Christians, right? They won't talk.
No.
They don't need to. And then also, authentic grassroots movements don't have any money. Whereas these movements have money, corporate support, government backing. They ain't grassroots.
No, not at all. Like we do all of, people always ask, how do you get the funding for what you do? And we get out a lot of leaflets. We do a lot of live events. And none of our volunteers across the country in the Natural Women's Council or any of the groups I work with, Irish Education Alliance, Parents' Rights Alliance, Lawyers for Justice Ireland, all of our time is volunteer. We get no public funding. We go out with a crowdfunding and say, hey, we want to make 100,000 leaflets. Can you give us a few euro? And once we get the money in, we go to the print shop and say, can you print it? So that money covers the paper, the ink, and the postage. And we are out there busting our tails around the country, leafleting in our spare time between school runs, getting on to different podcasts and talking to everyone we know without earning a penny. We don't get paid. We actually are probably out of pocket with all the tires getting worn down and the wear and tear and diesel. But we do it because most of us are mothers in our group. We care, grandmothers, and even people. There's a lot of people in our group who don't have their own children, and they are amazing with the time they have been dedicating to this campaign. Because even though they may not have their own children, they see this as an attack on humanity, an attack on children's innocence. Whether it's their children or not, that's irrelevant. It's just what's happening is so wrong. So I don't want to exclude people who aren't mothers and fathers, because we have many in our groups who aren't, and they are absolutely supporting and making such a difference.
It is a human thing.
It's a human thing. You said it.
Right? Absolutely, it's a human thing. Now, if people want to support you, I'll have the links to Natural Women's Council in the description below, and then they can send you lots of money and stuff. In terms of the children's stuff, here's my take on it. Just as people woke up to the threat to motherhood and womanhood with the referendum, I think there's going to be even more with children. I think there's even more, because people are going to be like, wait a minute, no, you don't do that with kids. You don't do that. You do not do that to say, because people are so repulsed and revulsed by sexualization of children. Like, no way. So I think this will be another project of the WEFs which will fail.
Mhm. Yeah, it has to fail. We need every teacher needs to know what's happening, every principal, every board of management from a school perspective, but every parent needs to know really what's happening. And we realized after the material I saw last week and looking back over the last year and a half, we were campaigning against the highly sexualized SPHE program and campaigning against the gender ideology being taught as a fact to children. Unfortunately, it still went into schools despite pushback from thousands of parents. So we realize how they feel untouchable. No matter how much we push back, they're going to keep trying to get it in, just like they did with the junior cycle. It was announced last week they're going after the primary school children, and the consultation here in Ireland is open until I think the 7th of June, first week in June. I have to check the date. So there's a consultation period now for people to give feedback on the primary school curriculum. But when you go into their survey, it's all flowery, it's all lovely. You would have no idea. The devil's in the detail. So we are going to be releasing the devil that's in the detail, and it's bigger than myself and my small groups can do. So we are going to be getting into the DAL, requesting to present this information to the senators, ministers, and TDs. They need to know about it, and if they know about it and don't do anything, well, they're complicit to this child abuse. We're going to send it to every single school. And we're also going to work on a documentary type video with a professional company, and I have a meeting with them tomorrow. So that will be another fundraiser to help pay for the production cost. But we're going to be showing people in a very professional studio setting and getting millions of views on that and getting that out across the country. So those are some big things we're working on, but we have a very short window of time to get this done. Very little time and even less money. So, but we'll make it happen.
Fabulous, Jana. Thank you so much. Thank you. Send me a link to that video that you talked about. I'll put it in the description below, and also a link to the Natural Women's Council and your YouTube channel and your Twitter. And if anybody has any comments or questions, let me know. Please share this video far and wide. Tell all your friends who are Irish and not Irish about what's going on, because this is happening in all the WEF captured nations. Canada, the United States, the UK, European Union, Australia, New Zealand. And this has to stop, and the Great Reset will fail. And please send lots of money to the Natural Women's Council.
I'll post the link. My Twitter handle. I'm setting up one especially for the council, but I have a good following on my Twitter, which is JKLUNDEN. So I'll post the fundraiser link on that. I'll pin it to my profile on JKLUNDEN, and it's also in most of our YouTube videos. We do put that on there because it covers our operating costs and our campaigns.
Fabulous, Jana. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to speaking to you again.
All right, we definitely will, sooner than later.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.